Hey, good evening. How the heck is everybody? It's good to see you. Sorry for the slightly late start. I had to make sure those kids get fed. Let me tell you something. Teenagers, you got to feed them sometimes 2, 3 times a day. You know? What can I tell you? Anyway, how the heck is everybody? You're all wonderful, by the way. All of you are good people. You're good, decent people. Dungeon Minister with a little bit of, I think, Doo Diddy. Was that the Rascals? I think that was the Rascals, but if it's not, correct me on that. So greetings to you all, and I want to give a special shout out to Dungeon Minister, who has recently joined our list of Patreons. Thank you very much, Dungeon. Oh, what's that? You want to join Patreon and you don't know how? Well, right there, patreon.com/the Delver's Dungeon. Now, let me tell you something, and I've always emphasized this, and I mean it 100%. If you just want to watch the videos, if you just want to stay subscribed to the channel, that's fine. That's fine. I love you all equally. You're all good folks. Fend for yourself Friday tomorrow. Yes, yes. So tomorrow starts Gamma World live stream. That's right. We will be playing Gamma World. That game starts at 9:30. We'll be doing a pre-stream in which I will talk about some stuff. I'll probably talk about Gamma World in the run-up. For those of you who might be unfamiliar with Gamma World, all one of you out there who might not know about Gamma World, I'll talk about it some tomorrow night. We'll kind of get into it. And then we're going to have us a fine old time because we will have a large crowd at the table. Well, a good sized crowd, 4 or 5 players at the table, and we'll be playing Game World, and it'll be lots of fun. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you're looking forward to it too. And we're going to have a blast with it. But anyway, how the heck is everybody otherwise? Oh, I have water in here. That's good. Do I have anything else in there? I live in Florida. I've got to check every body of water for alligators. Every body of water could have alligators in it. Imagine that. I think that's a new land speed record on battery failure for a light. I tip this thing back and just a gator just slides out and grabs my face. You guys would think it was funny, no doubt, but water, yeah. I remember one day I went into a meeting. This is back when I was working IT. I went into had a big like 1.5 liter bottle of Zephyr Hills, and I sat down and my boss was in there and he nodded and he said, "That is a big bottle of water." And I just looked at him and said, "Water? This is Bombay gin. You don't think I do this job sober, do you?" That's an IT joke, by the way. If you work in IT, we're all alcoholics. But anyway, to move on. So yeah, that is happening tomorrow night, and I'm very happy about it. Give me just a second here, would you? Just a hot minute. I'm gonna open up the tab for Facebook, and the reason I'm opening up Facebook, this upset me. I was cheesed off about this in no uncertain terms because last night I rolled over to my Facebook account to check things out, to look at things, to see what was going on. And what would you what do you think I saw? But a whole bunch of comments on Facebook that StreamYard had not pulled into display. So my peeps over on Facebook, I feel like they might have felt like I was ignoring them, like I just didn't give a damn what they had to say. And that's not true. That's decidedly not true. StreamYard, for as awesome as StreamYard is, wasn't bringing the Facebook live stream comments over. So, to my Facebook audience and my Facebook friends, I'm sorry. I apologize. But on the flip side, unlike YouTube that has to explicitly be told, preserve the live stream comments, Facebook just does it automatically. You can't switch that off. The comments on your video stay. So it's like, this is shit. This is shit, but in a different way. So yeah, Mobius says nothing good ever come out of Fraud Book. No, the human interaction that it gives us the opportunity to have is good, but if it wasn't for Facebook, it would be some other way. There would be something else. The baggage that you have to carry along with you in dealing with Facebook is pretty rough. Everything else about Facebook is pretty awful. I agree with you, Mobius, but there's a lot of people that I've reconnected with. There's a lot of people that I've connected for the first time with on Facebook. And I just wouldn't have that chance. Or rather, I would have had that chance through another medium, but it's just kind of happy circumstance. Hello, Damien. Good to see you. Very good to see you. But how's everybody else doing tonight? I hope that you are well. I hope that you are all very well and that things are going good for you. Greetings, Chris. Oh, speaking of customer dissatisfaction, something came up. I gotta I love my friends over at Hellabard Games. Don and his wife are fantastic people, and I really, really dig what they've done. Ricky Maru says, I caught a steam for once. Steamed hams. I think you mean stream. But anyway, but a valued customer on Facebook purchased a physical copy of Temple of the Sun. Now, it is my understanding that they have a very limited number of physical copies. And if you don't know what I mean when I say Temple of the Sun, just a moment. It is the Osric and Castles and Crusades print version of WGH2, which is a module that I wrote, and you can see it's floating around somewhere on the net. But it's my understanding that one, they have few of these in stock, and two, of that, a diminishingly small number have the old school style removable cover map folder. His came with an attached folder. I have to get with them and see if it is the case that they have some with removable covers still in stock, and see if that is what he wanted, and he said that's what he wanted and he didn't get that, I'll iron it out. If he didn't specify but he wanted that, I'll iron that out. So if in fact you had you had wanted a physical copy, go to hellabardgames.com, and you want the copy with the removable cover, like an old school AD&D module, specify the removable cover version is what you want. And if they have any of those left in stock, they'll get them to you. And incidentally, no, none of these are autographed. So yeah, if you're dealing with Hellebarde, please take care of that. IR says driving home from T-Town. That's Tuscaloosa to you folks that aren't one of the select few. Had to tell Nick to fire Doug Marone. Yes, I hope so. Look, you guys are gonna have to put up with some sports ball for a second here, because now that that college football has ended, we haven't had our show, and like I'm jonesing to talk about it, but just bear with me just a second. Alabama football fans, things were fine in the Natty until the back half of the fourth quarter. We lost that game in the last 9 minutes. So honestly, things went about as well as they could. And that's I'm set. I'm done. No more college football talk. But back to D&D. What product are those modules? Well, Calvinoni, it's interesting you ask. Are you talking about these, or are you talking about the modules that I wrote once upon a time? These modules are that singular that module from Hellebarde Games is a dual stat Osric Castles and Crusades open source version of a hand-built module that I created and was giving away for free many years ago in PDF form. There are no print copies of it. Don't ask me about a print copy. Oh, the one I just showed. Okay, well, that's what I'm explaining. Okay, so they are it is a Osric Castles and Crusades dual stat desert dungeon adventure module. Basically, you have a ruin in the middle of a desert. There's a dungeon underneath it, and there is a powerful artifact in the dungeon for the party to retrieve. On its face, very simple. I did, I just kept it nice and simple. Chris says, I dig the AD&D modules. When am I doing one for Game World? I have thought about releasing a Gamma World module. I want to get my Gamma World acumen up a little bit better. So if you were at GaryCon, which I honestly, I don't think anybody at the table here tonight was at virtual GaryCon, unless there's somebody lurking out in the audience who was last year. GaryCon 13. It's this very t-shirt that I'm wearing. I ran Classic Gamma World at virtual GaryCon. I'm proud of the adventure that I ran, Operation X70. And we didn't get through it. We didn't get all the way through it. I think it was a little bit more than for the 4 hours, although a bunch of the group did stick with it for after. We actually pressed on for another full hour on, when did I run X70? I think I ran X70 on opening night on Thursday night, and I had a very full table. But X70 was Operation X70, I think would make a good freebie module. Awesome shirt onto my want list. Oh, this, I don't know if they have any 13 shirts left. I don't. This is the Game Master shirt. So unless you find one used, or pry this one off my corpse should I keel over at some point, and you can come and find my body and loot it off me, good luck. Okay. So I may release X70 as a freemium Gamma World module. That is, I'll release it as a PDF, and then you can buy like a print one if I decide to. I haven't decided. I don't know. Gamma World is, different than AD&D. Anyway, so Vincent asks, and he is not a Bartolo. I know it's note a Bartolo. Note a Bartolo. Vincent asks, clothesline shopping, exactly like Matthew Broderick in Lady Hawk, which is a fantastic movie, by the way. If you've never seen Lady Hawk, just go stream it tonight, watch it, enjoy it. It is amazing. Anyway, to move on. Did I see the picture correctly? You met Mr. Gygax. Met Gary, interviewed Gary, hung out some with Gary a few times. Worked for Gary. Yeah. I'm not, I'm not gonna alpha nerd you guys, but I think it's a fun story. Uh, that you know what? That's what we'll do. That's what we'll fill up the evening with. Philippe the mouse. Yes, the mouse. He left a house. Hang him instead. Anyway, so anyway, for those of you who are new, I don't mind telling this story again. Back in 1999, I was just starting to ramp up playing AD&D. I had done some sessions. I had reacquired AD&D books. I was slowly scraping together modules. This was back when you could pick up a classic AD&D module on eBay or through somebody's web store like Crazy Igor's or someplace like that. Like they would have their product list on a page and you'd call them up and say, "Hi, my name is so and so. I would like to buy the Dungeon Master's Guide that you have listed in the price list on your website." "Oh, okay. That's $15 plus shipping and handling. I'll mail you a check." And then wait 3 days, 4 days for the check to get there. Get an email back from them saying, "We got your check. We're sending you your book." And then my book would arrive. That's back in 1999. That's how we shopped for Dungeons and Dragons items online. So, um, so one night I'm sitting there in the den, and I was like, I was reading. I'd gotten, was it as a Christmas gift or was it birthday gift? I feel like it was a birthday present, but I can't say for sure. But I got the Dragon Magazine CD-ROM archive as a gift, and I was reading through the PDFs, and my deep journey into Dungeons and Dragons, historically, system lore, all that jazz and matazz, had not even begun. So I go on Alta Vista. That's right, not Google, Alta Vista. And I type in, "What is Gary Gygax's email address?" And it was ggygax@genevaonline.com. I remember that. And so I sent out an email. "Is this really Gary Gygax?" And this was in the evening, so I guess Gary was at home at his computer. Not 5 minutes later, I get an email back. "Yep, it's me." I was like, "Whoa." I called my buddy Greg out in California. I'm like, "I got an email from Gary Gygax." That's the most awesome thing in the world. So he and I just email back and forth, and I find out he's out there on web forums. I was half in web forums, still halfway in Usenet. Usenet was dying, but still alive enough. So I go out, and lo and behold, Gary's on various web forums. So I just started interacting with him a little bit there. And it was the same questions over and over again. How far can an elf throw a dwarf? How many spheres of annihilation can you fit inside a portable hole? What's with that pole arm article, Gary? Lycos web browser. So it was the typical treadmill of conversation. Now, I found out that Gary was gonna be at a convention in Milwaukee, and it was a Milwaukee Game Fest. The guy who founded it had wanted to try and basically replace Gen Con. He had it in the same space in Milwaukee where Gen Con had it before it had moved out to Indiana, and so it was a huge hall, and it was a huge bust. I mean, there was a good number of people there for a game space about a tenth the size of what they had. I mean, they had some fun events there. They had some interesting cosplay. But anyway, I went up there and I had been play testing Castles and Crusades. I had signed on to be a Castles and Crusades playtester, and Gary was writing herd on the creation of Castles and Crusades. So I go up there and I go to the Troll Lord's booth and I'm chit-chatting with them and I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of excited about meeting Gary. And they're like, well, he's not here yet, but Rob Kuntz is sitting right over there. So I go over and I introduce myself and Rob signs some of my D&D books and we chit-chat and then Gary shows up. And to this point, I you know what? I apologize, Vincent, and anybody else who hasn't heard this. I skipped a major chunk because in 2002, this is all going on in 2004. In 2002, I had reached out to Gary and said, "Can I interview you for my website?" And he said, "Sure." And he let me record it. So I still have the recording of that interview. So I met him in person at Milwaukee Game Fest and hung around with him. I've still got the pictures somewhere. I'll have to scare him up. There's a lovely picture of Gail and uh just it was a good time. We had a lot of fun. So from that point forward, I kind of stayed in contact with Gary, and around 2005 or so, he put out an all hands and said, "Hey, I have this massive Yigsburg project." And Yigsburg was basically Gary's world build for kind of a revamped world of Greyhawk, if you're not familiar. So it's for Castles and Crusades. If you want to work on it, here's the conditions, yada, yada. I jumped at the chance. So for the next few years, I was working for Gary. And because of reasons, and I don't, that it there started out, there was 33 of us working on the project together. And as time went on, we lost about 2/3 of our authors. So those of us that stayed kept taking on more and more manuscripts to complete. And I ended up doing 4 or maybe 5 manuscripts. And among those was Teeth of the Barkesh Nor, which I have told you guys about before. So um I took uh you know I took on those projects, other people took on those, and we were trying to get them into the pipeline. And during that time, I went up to Lake Geneva 3 more times, two of them while Gary was still with us. And a lot of people have great stories about playing Dungeons and Dragons with Gary, or playing Go with Gary, or playing, you know, Stratego, or playing games on a sand table. I will tell you my favorite There I Was with Gary Gygax story. Um, the year before Gary passed away, my wife was about 3 months pregnant, 4 months pregnant with our second child. Daughter number one stayed down here in Florida. We went up to Lake Geneva Gaming Con. And for the developers, for those of us who were working with Troll Lord Games and working on things, there was and others, there was the front porch party, and it was a dinner, an informal dinner cooked by Gail, who's a good cook, by the way, and invited to come and sit and hang out. I am notorious for getting to things too early. Like if you say it starts at 7:30, I'll like at 7:29, my hand is swinging down to knock on your door. And so there we were at the Gygax's house, sitting on their front porch. Nobody else had gotten there yet. My wife and I talking to Gary and Gail. And I don't mind telling you, it was a very avuncular experience. We didn't talk about TSR. We didn't talk about Dungeons and Dragons. We didn't talk about chainmail or Elastilin minis or sand tables. Gary and I talked about being dads. Now, once Colleen mentioned to Gail that she was pregnant, Gail like went into doting aunt overdrive. She was like, "Do you need a pillow?" Gary turned the fan on and pointed at her. So, and just it was very sweet. And Gary and I talked about the benefits of co-sleeping versus not co-sleeping, and just dad stuff. We just talked to each other about dad stuff. That's it. That's all. No Greyhawk secrets, no, what's better, Conan or the Lord of the Rings. Just dad stuff. And a year later, or not even an entire year, Gary passed away. I went up one more time to Lake Geneva to the last LGGC, and I paid my respects to Gail. And that was where the story behind what happened with Teeth of the Barkesh Nor, Frank Mincer's interference, and all that began to unravel. And I still carry that wrath around with me today, but that's another story for another time. So, would I dare be so bold as to say I was Gary Gygax's friend? Friend carries a lot of weight. Friend is it is a powerful term. Am I friends with you guys? Sure. Could I show up at any one of your houses at 3 a.m. and say, the fam and I were driving through town and our car broke down and, we're on our last dime and have no place to stay. Can we crash in your living room until tomorrow morning? Maybe get a bowl of cold cereal on our going out while we try and figure out what to do? Probably not. Probably not. And I'm not saying that to say anything bad about you guys or to say anything bad about me or to say that I would show up at your house and do that. But you have friends that could do that. I have friends that could do that. Is that the level of friendship I had with Gary? Probably not. But were Gary and I of a like mind? Did Gary and I enjoy each other's company? Could I call him Gary and he call me Bill? Yes. I could send him an email and just, "Hi, how you doing?" kind of thing, and get an email back. I could swap puns with him. Terrible puns. So that is the very long, meandering answer, Vincent, to did I know Gary Gygax? Yes. Yes, I did. and I'm glad I got to know him. I'm glad I got to know him when I got to know him. Gary had a checkered life. I'm not going to sit here and say that he was this sainted person, because he wasn't. I'm not going to sit here and tear him down because he doesn't deserve it. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see. IR says, so I watched Conan the other day. Can't commit to the 30-day challenge, but I had totally forgotten about the scene where Doom turned into a snake. Yes, that is a great scene. That's the important stuff. You're absolutely right, Dungeon Minister. That is the important stuff. Barry Windsor Smith. Yes, Barry Windsor Smith. Okay, so here's a thing. I got to share this with you guys. One of the illustrations in OD&D, one of the guys who did that illustration, if I would stand in front of your door at 3 a.m., my first question would be, what the hell are you doing in Europe? One of the illustrations in one of the OD&D books we were looking at, and I got to double check because I can't remember what one it is or which illustration it was. Was it in? I feel like it was in Eldritch Wizardry, so I'm going to look at that one real quick. Actually, it lists all the artists in the top. Okay, so you guys talking about Conan put me in this. There is an illustration in Eldritch Wizardry, and I'm going to show it up on the screen here in just a minute. It is by a Gary Quapis. Let me say it right. Yeah, Gary Quapis. Or is it Quapis? We don't know. But I was kind of doing the whole, it's like, oh, it's 1975, and we're looking at this for the first time approach. There it is. There it is. I'm gonna put this up on screen. Let me see if I can get this to show. 155 DVDs, and Conan was one of them. Conan was the only one of them. That's how you look at that. So let me see here. Let me bring this up because it's always hilarious when I Zoom and that sort of thing. I'm back. Piping, kitchen, and sink came loose. Dope. Come on. Let me see if I can bring this up. There we go. All right. So this won't be up there for a long time. So this illustration right here, Gary Quapis. He went on later to illustrate Savage Sword of Conan. So that is a very rare case where somebody who did TSR art like started at TSR. I know Larry Elmore did other things, and so did Jeff Easley and so on. Easley did some Conan covers, I think, as well as Weird Tales. But Gary Quap is, as far as I know, that's his first professional illustration. Oh, did Dungeon Minister dip out? Ah, okay. Youngest wants to DM a game for me. Good. Let him DM a game for you and have lots of fun. Don't smoke your pipe in the kitchen sink again. Use your own. Yes. And Vinny said, what was it? I'd love to hear the interview. I may play it on the 18th of March, which is, let me see, the 18th of March. That is a Friday. I might do an all-day show on Friday again this year. Just like pull a 12-hour show for our second anniversary. We'll have to see. I honestly I don't know if I'll do that, but if I do, I may run the Gygax interview again since it went so swimmingly last year. If you were here for that fiasco. Let me see. I apologize if there's some sudden audio bleed over. I just got to have the chat for Facebook open again. I don't want to miss any comments. I mean, most of the time when Gary and I talked, it was about design stuff in relation to things that I was working on for him at the time. But yeah, we had just regular conversations from time to time. Now, the guy who's a friend of mine who had a great a great time with Gary on a personal level, and he's been on the show. He was on the show just last week talking chainmail. Paul Stormberg, of course. Paul's the guy you want to talk to about interpersonal relations with Gary, about talking to him about stuff in general, not little old me. I mean, I kind of lucked into it. I mean, you think about the little decisions that you commit to in life, little things you do between situation A and situation B. I mean, like, why did I email that night? What possessed me to fire off an email to Gary Gygax? Just, just had some neuroreceptors jump from axon to dendrite in the old noggin and said, let's do that thing. And the rest, as they say, is history. So, Ricky, I don't think you were here. Were you here last year for the first year anniversary back in March of last year, March 18th, when I think then I did like 8 hours or something. I don't remember, honestly. That whole day is kind of a blur, but I may do it again. I may do it again. Believe it or not. Huh. Well, I'll be ding danged. Because I think that was before I started dual streaming to YouTube. So, wasn't it? Or was it? I honestly don't remember. So it may just have been on Facebook. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Something happened to the audio file, and it won't happen this year because I'm going to put together an actual audio video presentation if I decide to do it, and then just drag and drop it right into StreamYard, or I'll serve it up via OBS. I'll just have OBS stream it to you guys through StreamYard still, but rather than dragging and dropping it into StreamYard. I don't know. First anniversary of 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or as I called it, day 365 of 2 weeks to flatten the curve. First time I noticed a model of a beholder on that shelf above your head, Bill. Could I hold that up to the camera? I will hold that up to the camera. Just one moment, please. It's lurking. A bee lurker instead of a beholder. Hold on. Ah! Casualties! Anyway, who is hanging on the back of the seat there? Oh, there were some precious things knocked over. Oh, well. Anyway, let me bring this up. There's one there's one for the highlight show. That is the beholder. So this was made for me by my friend Jeff Johnson. He is paper mache, but these are, of course, glass beads for his eyes. I don't know what the teeth are made out of, but they look distressingly real. So I'm not going to ask. I'm just going to put that right there. Stay. Please don't tell my boss I was sleeping. It only looks like a beholder if you get close enough. You can see it's a gas spore. Well, it certainly caused an explosion on the shelf behind me. I have a bunch of stuff now. Like after the stream, I'm going to have to dig around. I wonder what fell. Oh, probably just impossible to replace. You know, 1/300 scale Macross miniatures. I've got a Warhammer and a Tomahawk and a Radar X. He's not evil. He just guards dungeons on the weekends to afford oral surgery. Yeah, he's just he's a spectator. He takes after his mother's side. He's a spectator, not a beholder. Now imagine the dust amongst the. I'll have you know, I take a compressed air can and blow over those periodically to, you know, churn the dust up so it immediately settles back down on the minis. Kyle, thank you. Oh yeah, yeah, there he is. Leg broken. Well, leg popped off the mounting pin. And oh yeah, yeah, I lost the missile rack, broke off. I'll have to glue that back on. It's my Tomahawk mini. Let's see. This guy's old. You can see he's supposed to have a little missile rack that sticks up over there that is now lying somewhere on the floor. Oh, there it is. Yep. I'll have to glue that back on. Yes, that's right, Jeff. That is one of the 20th century import models. Although Big West Bandai were selling models like this before before the guys at TCI got involved. Don't worry about it, passerby. It was very old. Something would have broken it eventually. But yes, these are TCI models. Now, a little bit of backstory is in order here. So, if you don't know Macross and Robotech, don't worry about it. I've talked about it a little bit before, but long story short, giant mecha powered, driven by people, powered by fusion engines. FASA came along and Jordan Weisman and his dad went to Japan, saw the designs, and said, hey, we should have those designs for our giant robot game we just released called Battle Droids, which they then got sued by Lucas, and because Lucas thinks they own anything with the word droid in the title. So that, as they say, was that. And then they said, well, we'll rename it Battletech. There's a few rare copies of the Battletech starter box that say Battle Droids on them. Well, they wanted to import those models in the United States. And so they started asking around, who's got the license to import from this TV show called Macross into the United States? Well, Harmony Gold at that time was starting to ramp up Robotech. But a toy importer called 20th Century Imports was starting to import these little kits. And although they're a bit on the big and chunky side, these will work perfectly in Battletech. In fact, I knew people back in the day who had whole rafts, like whole companies and lances, and they played Battletech exclusively with these, not the Ralpartha miniatures that are smaller. They're like 1/385 or something like that. So 20th Century Imports said, "That's us, Jim." And FASA said, "Great, we'll cut a deal with you to use these images and everything in Battletech, and we'll call them Warhammers and Marauders and Riflemen and Archers and Thunderbolts and Crusaders and all yada 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 yada." Harmony Gold stepped up and said, "Wait a minute, we've got the license to do that." 1/385 allegedly, yes. So there was a whole lot of back and forth for a decade. Lawsuits flew around. Just it was a legal nightmare, and eventually FASA just gave up, and they both decided to go their separate ways. Harmony Gold doing whatever they wanted with the Macross designs, and FASA dropping the Macross designs. Now, one thing, and I found this, it was just fascinating information. I used to decry in later FASA products how different artists drew, to my eyes at the time, badly drew the Robotech / Macross mechs. I was like, man, this is crap. These, that Marauder looks like a tennis ball. Its legs are bending the wrong way. Why did you draw that Rifleman looks like it has hip dysplasia and it doesn't have the T-shaped radar antenna over its head, on and on and on. My apologies, FASA Battletech artists. I thought you were doing a bad job. As it turns out, their marching orders were to draw them very differently, but still make them recognizable as a Marauder and a Warhammer and a Rifleman and an Archer and Stinger and Wasp, etc., because they were in the process of being sued by those charming people, Harmony Gold and Playmates and everybody else in the world. So that's why that was going on. But yeah, these guys, I picked these guys up. I didn't even play Battletech when I picked up this Warhammer come Tomahawk and the Rifleman. I made a comment though. Somebody said, somebody posted a picture of the Tomahawk Destroyed from a model box. Now, if you don't know anything about Macross and you care to know this kind of greebly thing, the Tomahawk, this guy right here, is essentially a battlefield siege unit. Under its shoulder pauldrons on either side, those can pop open and they've got missiles. Each missile is it's the equivalent of a Hellfire missile in modern parlance, but with like a 25-mile range, and it's got a smart AI that can guide it around things. So if you duck down and cover, it'll just come and find you anyway. It's the two big swinging cannons that it's got instead of arms can shoot like 30 miles or something insane like that, shoot through hills. Its short range missiles are still like 10 miles and can pluck small spaceships out of orbit and that sort of thing. Battletech weapons are not nearly so advanced. So somebody said, yeah, that's my favorite battle mech. And I'm like, I just kind of had a little nerdy moment and said, yeah, if a Macross Tomahawk entered the Battletech world, once he'd shot down the dropships bringing battle mechs to the field, any battle mechs remaining on the field, it would core from 30 or 40 map boards away with completely accurate hits from its reflex AI controlled main guns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and the person was aware of this. They're like, oh yeah, that's Macross and BattleTech are very, very different beasts when it comes to how their mechs behave. So, all I know about this stuff is playing the Mech Warrior. This is Kyle. I'm putting this on screen. The Rambo variant that had machine guns only and never overheated. Uh, Granted, that's an easy way to do it, although, you do find yourself having to fight from, 30 yards away from your target to hit it. That's something else with BattleTech is they said, oh, well, we want this to be playable on just 1, 2, or 3 map boards at most. A map board being, I think, like 17 inches by 30 inches or 17 inches by 28 inches or something like that. So they deliberately limited the ranges of the guns and said, well, it's because there's been this technical regression because of 300, 400, 500 years of endless war. History, technologies regress to the point where armies can barely field machines and so on and etc. Um, so, they made it work. Chris having a bit of fun with this. Didn't they get the idea from Max from that Matrix sequel? Rambo never fought from. I can hear that in your voice in my head, Kyle. By the way, good stuff. Oh, love me some Rambo. But anyway, I do wonder what bit the dust. What else bit the dust over here when that fell? Because I found this little nodule of plastic, and that makes me worry. I'm like, oh Lord, what was that part of? Oh well, that's life. Lasers shouldn't have max range. No, they should not. Although, I mean, to be fair, the more realistic mecha game is Heavy Gear, and its lasers have a max range too, beam attenuation and max accuracy range and that sort of thing. But it's a lot more than BattleTech's. Heavy Gear follows kind of a modern feel with how all of its stuff works. You're talking about stealthy kills with a mech with nothing but machine guns. Yeah, the sound of 20 Vulcan autocannons firing, very stealthy. What's that buzzing sound? I don't know, but Bob's mech just fell apart. So anyway, that's a brief history of my meeting with Gary Gygax, of BattleTech mechs, and just about that. One day we're going to have to do a deep dive on classic BattleTech, I think. I've sort of talked about it a little bit, but the more I think about it, the more I think I'd like to do a show and just talk about BattleTech, the RPG, at least the first and second editions. Yes, mechs and Heavy Gear were run by diesel electric turbines, the V engines, that were really cool. And we'll talk about Heavy Gear one day. But anyway, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap up there. I think that's about it. But before we go, and again, it is a great game world. And there's things you can do to fix the tech without breaking the game, I've found. I think it's more fun to play. Like, I think you should either play BattleTech just straight up 3019 there's no end in sight. Your battle mech is made out of scrap metal. Your targeting system is literally painted on the inside windscreen of your cockpit. Um, you literally have to rely. Major houses have to rely on pirates, on privateers whose FTL ships have passed down through the centuries through their families to get their armies from point A to point B. And there's like maybe 5 or 10 functioning factories that produce battle mechs or their fusion engines or parts for battle mechs in each major house, you know, and it's just grimdark. Or go to the other end of the spectrum. It's like, you know, 3060. Life is important. Battle mechs are not really. And you get stuff like ECM and reactive armor blocks and advanced targeting computers and all that. The in between period there is not so much fun, but I think you should play it at one or two ends of the spectrum. But anyway, we'll talk all about that more later. I want to take a minute to talk about our Patreons, whom I want to thank. Digital Discord, Joshua Garlick, Lord Corion, Ricky Maru, 8, Mobius 8, Kevin Reynolds, Joseph Lucas, Doomsword Deathmaster. We will joust again. You'll get a chance back at your title. Mark Simpson, Damian X247, James F. Keck, William Smith, and of course, our latest Patreon, the Dungeon Minister. Thank you. You guys really, really help out around these parts. And I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Everybody who contributes, regardless of what level it's at on the Patreon, really, thank you guys so much. I really, really do appreciate it. So yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap up for there. You guys have a fantastic evening. Love you all. Thanks for stopping by. We'll be back tomorrow night with some chat and then some Gamma World. So y'all be well, and I'll see you then. Swing on by. It's going to be a lot of fun. Peace out.